Okay. I made peace with Spain. So the war with Spain ended. He then ended up become allies. And he went down and hunted down Huguenots, cut their tongues out, cut their ears out, gouged out eyes, you know, just good quality French fun. Yes.
What war was the no peace without Spain? Whatever. No peace without.
Huh?
Not this war. What war was no peace without Spain? Or no. Not this
Oh,
war.
Castor Valley Wars?
Was that they called the no peace without Spain, whatever, treaty? I just remember like no peace without Spain being phrased in some war.
I can't place it right now.
It's somewhere in this time frame. I'll figure it out.
We might come across it.
Are you thinking of Spanish secession? That's close as I can get to, and that's still about 100 years away. Yeah.
Probably that.
But when Queen Mary died, his daughter Elizabeth married Philip of Spain. And so cementing ties, they're relatively close together. Things are going great. So great. But the problem was Huguenots were growing, these Calvinists in France. Huguenots just basically means like fellow traveler. It's saying, hey, we all agree, kind of keep it secret. Yeah.
When the two nations like compete with one another, do they have to like sign a marriage?
No. No. But this was just a way to kind of cement the peace, be sure they met peace. We all agree. But the Bourbons were growing. That was another family. The Bourbons were here, in this area here. They were going closer to the Huguenots. And one of the most important families of the Bourbon family was Henry of Navarre. Yes, another Henry. Oh, we have lots of Henrys. Wait till we get to the Louis.
There's like 16 Louis.
But Henry II, in a celebration, actually after a routing of Calvinists in Paris, and also his marriage, or the marriage of his daughter, decided to do something he enjoyed doing dramatically, jousting. You notice the line through Henry. What happened to Henry while jousting?
Yeah, he lived.
He lived, and he's still alive to this day. He has a little studio apartment in Seattle. No! The lance of his opponent bounced off the front of the horse, right through the little eye slit, right in. Stabbed in the eye, died 3 days later. Now, he forgave the person who did it, who was incredibly apologetic. And this, as you would be surprised, kind of ended lancing, at least for monarchs, for a while. I know, I agree, we should bring it back. But
Wait, what are we going to use for the
if you look carefully, you can see the splintered lance in his eye. See that thing sticking out? That's not his nose, that's a lance.
He looks perfectly fine with that. He doesn't look like he's in trouble at all.
He's fine, everything's cool. Well, he's going to be replaced by 3 essentially weak sons will follow. His widow was Catherine de Medici.
Seriously, what's up with all these Catherines?
And they're very popular names.
To be honest,
I'm sorry, we got Catherines, we got Henrys, we got Louis.
that hat right there, I thought those were her eyebrows for a second.
And the Medici family from Florence, very intelligent, influenced from behind. She was widowed. She's going to become the regent, which basically rule in the place of the king. Their sons were so young. And a family to oppose the Bourbons were called the Guise family. And they were intensely Catholic, and soon would become fanatics in the Counter-Reformation. So France is going to have this massive fight because of this. And the first son, at 16, Francis II. He's the one who married Mary, Queen of Scots. But he very much influence of the Guise family, even though Catherine was she was playing a balancing act. Because she did not want France to go into a civil war because, well, she didn't want France to go into a civil war because the war might destroy the monarchy and her son's crown, but also it might hurt her position. But soon after they were essentially married, Francis died of an ear infection. By the way, I can't even imagine how, it started the ear infection. It's clearly other things were going on. But with infection, it just suddenly happened. It was kind of sickly, they say, it just boom, gone. And so it must have been something horrible, and they probably didn't realize it, so the ear was infected. That's a picture of him right when he became king. God, he looks so young. Because he was. Soon to be replaced by Charles IX, who was 10 years old when his brother died, 11 when he was formally made king. And Catherine, through Catherine's influence, that's him when he became king.
He looks much older.
Well, I think they're trying to make him look a little older. Yeah.
How old did they have to be before they just
Yeah, James was less than 1, yeah, when he became king of Scotland. So you're alive, and then the regent would rule for you until you're an adult.
Okay.
But you can imagine a regent didn't want to give up power. So one of the things that's going to happen is Catherine will be the regent, but when he became an adult, she still tries to wield power. And Catherine is going to push for the policy of toleration towards the Huguenots. In fact, the Huguenots kind of came out in the public, yeah, we'll get our ears cut off. And yes?
What would be considered the right age for them to be able to take power?
More and more adult was considered to be 18 or 19, but it would not be, for him, it was when he turned 20.
Okay.
And so there's relative peace, yeah.
Theoretically, could a little baby king order someone to be executed?
Theoretically, yes.
How would you
So that sounds like a Twilight Zone episode. Moving on.
How would you be able to give the order? Be like, kill it.
Only the region can hear.
Like people were wrong.
So, Catherine's daughter, Charles's sister, for toleration, married the Bourbon Huguenot, Henry of Navarre. One of these, we'll all get married, all coming together. So we'll have peace. Nobody was more upset than Henry of Guise, who not only saw this as a direct threat to him, because he wanted to influence the new king, and who knows, but he saw the Huguenots as being nothing more than agents of Satan. Which, by the way, the Huguenots looked at the Catholics and saw them as impure mongrels who were destroying Europe and the world. Needless to say, when you have these set of groups that might fight, it's getting hard to come together for a group hug. I think it might get that point down the road. But they really don't see each other. By the way, here's Margaret. I love the style of facial hair in France. So the style for him was, this you'll see Louis, was to grow a mustache, and then they would pluck out like every other hair. So you get this kind of cheesy little bit of hair there. And see the little mustache?
No, I barely noticed it.
Yeah. That was the style. And then they would pluck out the hair, so you just get like this really thin mustache.
I've heard.
And I agree, it's awesome. So wait till you see me after spring break. Yeah.
Is there any connection between bourbon and bourbon?
No. Hey, what? Darn it!
That's like the thing between Lancasters and Yorks. It's not really a general thing.
And there's no, there's still about 100 years away from bourbon. Actually, gin. So with that, well, on the day of the wedding, this big wedding, Henry came up with a plan. And the plan was to use this as an excuse for Catholics to rise up all over France and murder Huguenots. And this is going to be called the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre. And this will have great effect. This will trigger like the Dutch. So we just got to go independent and fear amongst Huguenots all over. But they rose up because it was, the wedding happened. Henry, who was a Protestant, he's a Calvinist. They had the wedding mass, and he had to stand outside while they had the wedding. So he couldn't even be in his own wedding. Whatever that means, But it's just kind of that weird answer. I guess I had to yell to him. But then this we use as a pretext, saying we have just allowed Satan to be one step away from the crown, because now Henry's more directly related. He's a cousin. And 5,000 people were killed in Paris. 20,000 overall would be killed. You can imagine Calvinists are going nuts all over. This is actually going to lead to an exodus of Huguenots. Some of the Huguenots went to the Americas. There's a little place right here called St. Augustine, where Huguenots went there to try to colonize in what is now Florida. But the Spanish went up there to get rid of the Calvinists and killed them all, cut their throats, dropped them in the bay, and renamed it St. Augustine, which is the longest standing European settlement in what is now the United States. It was originally Huguenots who tried to escape. These wars were horrific. So a bloody massacre. Henry was captured, actually, and the only reason he survived because he married, because his wife was the king's sister. That's the only reason he survived. And Catherine of Medici begged him, pleaded with him, convert to Catholicism and you could become king. Especially because Charles went completely nuts. Charles lost his mind. When this was going on, he was supposedly babbling from the window, kind of in tongues.
Which Charles?
Charles the Ninth. He went insane. Begged him. In fact, to give you an idea how weird marriages were, Catherine, who tried to convince Henry to convert to Catholicism and maybe you could be king, found him a mistress. Catherine's daughter was married to Henry, and she found him a mistress. Yeah, let's say this was all politics. Thanks, Mom. But moving on.
Wait, why did Charles go insane?
He was already kind of unstable, and the pressures of this literally, like he couldn't control it, it was out of control. Just had a complete and total. And that's what they all say, the insane king. The insane king. And they kind of locked him away in a room. It's always one of those, like, how insane was he really? Well, Charles IX died of consumption. Yeah. Now, okay. At least that's what they said. It could have been the consumption could have been he consumed a knife.
Or he could have been.
But the story is consumption.
He could have been actually consumed by cannibals.
So let's not go there. Cannibalism was bad. Henry III, now the last son. Now Henry III was the most capable son. He was very intelligent, Catholic, but very pragmatic, practical. What's best? So he's very much like his mom. Very much like his mom. And there's him at his coronation. He became king at 23, and for 2 years he was also king of Poland. By marriage, they picked him. He actually went to Warsaw and Krakow. Went to Krakow, that was more the capital then. They kind of was king for a while and then realized it was too difficult. This is actually going to be bad news for Poland. When he left, it left Poland more and more in responsibility of kind of this of nobility. And so they were weak. And 100 years later, European powers like Austria, Prussia, and Russia would begin to scoop it up. It's coming, and Poland will disappear. Poland, as we know it, would not come about until 1919. Well, maybe 1918, depends on your definition of when World War I ended. And so this is going to lead to the War of the Three Henrys.
Of course, there's three.
Three Henrys. So here we have Henry III is trying his best to have toleration. Henry of Navarre is bouncing around. He finally fled and joined the Protestants. And Henry of Guise. And soon this is going to be essentially a Catholic League versus the Protestant League. But I should add, Henry III was, even though he's Catholic, was never really part of the Catholic League. He tried to balance the two. He was trying to figure out a way to end this thing. Maybe find some kind of marriage or something. Make an agreement with Henry of Navarre.
He was trying to stop this war.
Yeah, because he knew correctly this would end his reign. Yeah. I will get you. I'll put them all down. I'm pretty sure So we got Henry III, Henry of Navarre, and Henry of Guise. For some reason, I decided to capitalize the O here because it's Henry Navarre.
So that's just the name of the place it was born.
Yeah.
It was of Navarre, not just
Yeah, of Navarre. And he's a Bourbon. He's a Bourbon. The king, Catholic, were trying to reconcile Protestant League, Catholic League. And the fight was a bitter one. The Catholics controlled the north. The south, you're going to have Henry Navarre and Huguenot land.
Was Henry III actually was he on either side of them, or was he kind of neutral?
Well, he was kind of stuck with being more in the Catholic League, especially because the Catholic League dominated Paris, but he was trying to find a way to reconcile. Well, realizing that he can't trust Henry of Guise. Can't trust Guise. I don't know, I keep saying Guise. Of Guise. Geese. Those French. Yeah, it is geese, though. Geese, goose? Gander.
Gooses?
Mongooses. He made Henry of Navarre heir. Navarre was a cousin and also his brother-in-law. I'm sorry, not his brother-in-law, his uncle-in-law. And so with that, he's there. The thought was, okay, we solved the problem. But then he realized, if I do that, who's going to come after my head? Henry of Goose. And so with that, he got rid of them. He sent assassins to kill Henry and also Henry's brother, who was a bishop.
Wait, which Henry?
Of Guise.
Okay. So he did not kill Henry of Navarre.
He killed them. And then he ran to Henry of Navarre's camp, and a monk disguised as a messenger killed Henry.
Which one?
The third. So Henry III was killed, and Henry of Guise was killed.
We've got too many Henrys here.
And this triggered now just all-out fighting. Henry Navarre has a price on his head. The Catholic League and the Guise family fighting desperately. There's no clear heir. Henry claims he's heir, tries to take Paris, and comes up with an agreement. There. Henry Navarre finally defeated the Catholic League in a battle outside of Paris. But he knew the Catholic League was incredibly strong. So what did Henry do? If I want to be king, I might have to make a few changes. He became Henry IV of France and then converted to Catholicism. And what he said was, Paris is worth a mass. It's worth a mass. I'll go to mass to become king. And I mentioned this once before. Elizabeth was this too, politique. Religious considerations, sure, that might be important for the person, but what matters is the state. And Henry realized that the only way the state to end the Civil War is for a Huguenot to convert to Catholicism, thus telling Catholics, I've accepted you, and Huguenots, I have not forgotten you. And he will soon be known as the Good King. Yeah. Mass, that is the name for the Catholic religious service. And so, Paris, that is a pretty good saying, you got to admit. So don't worry about writing this down. The great Baroque artist Rubens drew Henry IV entering Paris. I like that painting. I wish I had a better copy of it. Easy for me to say now. Henry IV. So, the Spanish would be kicked out. The Spanish were retreating with that in there. It's no coincidence that the Spanish Armada would be defeated at about the same time. So, Spanish, he became more independent. Next, he would issue the Edict of Nantes. And Nantes allowed for Huguenots, but not for everybody. Other religions would not be granted freedom, and you can imagine what this means. There are exceptions, and they could increase, and maybe a king down the road might say, you know, Some religions aren't allowed. He meant to say Huguenots too. For me? I didn't get you in. I'll take it. All right, good. But it's still divided by religion. So there's still this religious conflict that's going to happen. But the Bavay are gone, and it's going to be the Bourbon. Now they're related, so that's why they call it the House of France. But it will be Bourbon kings up until 1848. There's Henry.
Wait, you go back.
Yes. Oh, he's going to be called the Good King. Not Henry the Great, it's just the Good King. Which actually, that is better, I would argue. Because what makes it great? Great just means a great, like huge, that's good. He led peace, seemed to solve problems. Some of the issues of feudalism would die. Oh, I'm not saying he didn't have his own problems. But in 1610, Francois Ravaillac, he was just an absolute fanatic who believed that Henry, by making peace, was actually bringing Satan into the crown. He did not really convert. I don't care how peaceful things have been. It's still on a powder keg. And in Nantes, a town south of Paris where Henry was visiting, this is supposedly Henry right here, and you see right here, he charged it and stabbed him to death. And the good king died. And now we have Louis XIV, or 13th, who was 9 years old. And he will reign for a very long time, including a little war called the 30 Years' War. Because apocalypse is coming to Europe. Huh? 13. X is 10. So 1, 2, 3. This will begin the whole string of Louis. We got Louis XIII, Louis XIV, Louis XV, Louis XVI. Louis XVII will live to about 5 and then be executed or starved to death in a prison cell.
Oh, so I just started at 13?
No, they had other Louis before. We just had to talk about them.
Who knows?
Louis XVIII will be the last king. There will also be Louis XV. And that's the 30 Years' War, and that's where we quit. So I'll give you the rest of the period to read 14.1 and 14.2. It's online, or you can check there, but please use this time to read. Make sure it works again. I blame.
Don't blame the one who's filming.
Everyone should have the bookmark.
Ow.
I didn't even.
We start Jonestown next period, don't we?
Such a good story. You will not believe.
How good end?
They do it the best way. It's a very impressive story. Yeah, you remember that video. Yeah, it's such an amazing story. Yeah. That's me. It's still being recorded. Anybody want to get in the camera?
Wow, that is a really long survey.
Here we go, everyone, smile. Someone's got a mask on, so.
I don't need to find.
Oh, you're logged in. Well, I'm leaving.
Wait, are you in the meeting?